This has been our home for the last 43 years. When it was built in 1980, one of the design considerations was its ability to withstand both tropical and maritime climates here in the Philippines. Yes, we experience relatively high temperatures, high humidity, and abundant rainfall. Now, from a tropical climate perspective, this house features a 10-foot high ceiling, a 4-foot high crawl space between the ceiling and the roof, soffit vents, abundant windows all around, and a marble flooring, all working together to keep the interior as cool as possible. Back in the day, these design elements were more than enough. But what we did not anticipate was that after 4 decades, climate change will impact the entire world and bring forth extreme weather. From my own experience and observations, sunny days have become extremely hotter, while rainy days today make thunderstorms of yesteryears feel like a drizzle. Heck, even the line has blurred between summer and rainy seasons. We now get intermittent thunderstorms and flash floods during summer, and even super hot days during the rainy season. In Metro Manila, Philippines, the average annual temperature was 27.3 degrees Celsius in 1980. In 2022, this rose to 28.5 degrees Celsius. That's a rise of 1.2 degrees Celsius. If you think 1 degree isn't much in 40 years, think again. According to the World Meteorological Organization, which is an agency of the United Nations, the past 8 years were the warmest on record globally, fueled by ever-rising greenhouse gas concentrations and accumulated heat. Last year, as the world faced unprecedented natural disasters brought about by climate change, the average global temperature was about 1.15 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. The trend was clear. Since the 1980s, each decade has been warmer than the previous one. So yeah, every degree Celsius or Fahrenheit counts and has a huge cascading effect, even reaching all the way to our homes. During the day, the part of a house that sunlight heats up the most and the longest is the roof, simply because the sun traverses above us. And the amount of heat that a roof absorbs depends on the color of its coating. A typical roof absorbs 90% of the heat coming from the sun. Dark-colored roof coatings absorb more heat compared to lighter-colored roofs. And no other color deflects sunlight the best than white. There are no ifs and buts about it. It's basic science. And in this project, we're going to put this concept to the test by painting our roof white. By the way, across 40 plus years, we had painted our roof red, then yellow, and lastly green. But always with the intention to keep rust away and prolong the life of these corrugated galvanized iron sheets. Otherwise, it would be so much more expensive to replace them. And not to mention the huge inconvenience of being roofless for a few days. So yeah, painting it with a fresh coat still aligns with that purpose, but this time around, we are also being mindful of heat resistance. And our weapon of choice is Boysen's Acrylic Roofgard B-2501 Laguna White. Now, in my opinion, there are only 2 important words on this label, acrylic and white. We ended up buying this brand because it's the only one being sold that's both acrylic and white within our immediate area. If I had more patience and time, I would have preferred something that's pure white. Okay, first let me break down the benefits of acrylic coatings per se, and why they are generally a popular and practical choice to restore and protect sloped metal roofs. As a water-based substance, acrylics are easy to paint with and can be diluted with water if needed. They dry faster than oil-based coatings, which means lesser wait time in between coats. They are also UV resistant and highly reflective. These inherent features can save money by drastically reducing cooling costs during hot weather. For example, it will take lesser time and effort for your air conditioning units to cool down your home if the indoor temperature is already much lower than outside to begin with. And most importantly, acrylic roof coatings are less expensive and just as durable compared to other paint types. This gives you a trifecta of long-lasting performance, reduced energy consumption, and lower maintenance costs. Speaking of costs, I paid 12,640 pesos or $227 for 3 16-liter buckets and 4 4-liter pails. If we do the math, this translates to 197 pesos and 50 cents or $3.55 per liter. This was more than enough to cover 143 square meters or 1,538 square feet of roofing with at least 2 coats and then some. And because this project aimed to alleviate the challenges brought about by extreme weather, intense heat, rain, and humidity, We also bought several materials for waterproofing improvement and repairs, such as this 1 kilogram can of Sapal 2-in-1 elastic sealant and waterproofer by Buildrite. This is a paintable, crack-resistant, and water-based polymer which I think is easier to apply than Voltaseal. It even comes with its own applicator which can even double as a cleaning or scraping tool. I bought this online for 378 pesos. We also bought 2 packs of Elastoseal, PVC pipes, elbow joints, 2 cans of Epoxy Primer, paint brushes and rollers, concrete and rivet nails, and a piece of GI flat sheet. These amounted to 3,063 pesos. And because I'm no longer young and would surely struggle in repairing and painting the roof myself under the sun, I hired 2 specialists to do the work for me. We agreed that their labor fee was 9,000 pesos. So the entire project cost a grand total of 24,703 pesos or $444 and was completed in 4 days. Okay, now that I've shown you the when, the who, the where, the what, and the why, let me turn back time to show you exactly how we did it. Because there's more aspects to this project than just painting a roof white. If we were to make our roof endure extreme heat, then we might as well go the distance and reinforce it against extreme rain, humidity, and even wind. With these in mind, we go back to day 1. And day 1 really begins with answering 2 questions. First, how much roof and other relevant surfaces do we need to paint on with at least 2 coats? After measuring the perimeter of the main and extension roofs, I calculated for the area and arrived at 143 square meters. Obviously, I had to double this number to represent 2 coats. This allowed us to accurately estimate how much paint to buy. For example, if a single 4-liter can of this Boysen Roofgard can coat a minimum area of 30 square meters, then we would need 5 4-liter cans to coat our entire roof once, or 10 cans to coat it twice. We actually bought something equivalent to 16 cans because we also needed to paint the inside and outside of roof gutters, old flashings, and new flashings, while still having ample reserves for emergencies and touch-ups. The second question is, what areas on and around the roof need repairs or some kind of maintenance before painting them over? And we were able to spot some minor and major pain points. For example, tree branches that hang over certain sections of the roof, causing leaves to fall, decompose, and generate rust on the metal sheets. Old service cables still sticking out that may cause hazard during strong winds. Rust and cracks that have formed in key areas where water easily seeps through and leaks down below. Certain gaps in our gutter system where water overflows whenever rain falls faster than our downspouts could drain out. Or water drips across this entire length whenever strong winds blow rain diagonally or even sideways. The deterioration of our firewall flashing by rust, gunk, and stagnant water. Toilet air vent pipes missing a cap or some kind of cover, letting in rainwater that causes higher humidity inside the ceiling. Sealant along the seams where the wall and roof converge has already become too brittle and deteriorated. Or the downspout of this roof gutter had rusted and fallen off several years ago, leaving the garage floor wet and slippery with rainwater splatter. Armed with this knowledge, we were able to anticipate what other materials we needed in addition to the paint. After purchasing everything, it was time to prep the roof. While all the prep work was being done up on the roof, I went inside our living room to check on the ambient temperature. At 3:27 p.m., it was 34 degrees Celsius or 93.2 Fahrenheit. Unfortunately, it didn't occur to me to get a reading of the roof itself, so I had no basis if 34 degrees Celsius was warmer or cooler in relation to our roof. By the way, on this day, June 24, 2023, the forecasted AccuWeather daytime temperature was 32 degrees Celsius in the city we live in. An hour later, they began painting the first coat of acrylic white, but only on the left side of the roof per my instructions. and they painted as much as they could with a couple of hours left in the day. We began day 2 early, and by 10:39 a.m., about 85% of the left side of the roof had already been painted with the first coat, including the extension. Of course, painting will continue throughout the day, but in the meantime, I wanted to show you 4 interesting things that you might want to take note of should you decide to undertake this roof project. First is how we used a 90-degree PVC elbow joint to make a cover for our toilet air vent pipe. With the opening now pointing to the side instead of directly facing up, it would be harder for rainwater to get into the pipe. You see, the pipe itself runs vertically downwards from the roof past the ceiling space through a wall, connects to our toilet and sink drain pipes, and ultimately to our sewer line. This is an essential pipe for our plumbing system because it prevents sewer gases and odors from entering our home and instead let them escape through the roof. But since the pipe is made of metal, it is a conducive material for condensation, especially when cold rainwater touches its inner walls. And when condensation happens a lot inside the ceiling below, it's a recipe for dampness, mold, and rotting. And during high temperatures, the water particles mix with the air, causing high humidity. So, adding a cover and later insulating the metal pipe with epoxy primer and paint is an inexpensive approach to avoiding all those complications. By the way, we used Sapal 2-in-1 to hold the elbow joint in place and reinforce the seams where the pipe and the roof merge. The second thing I wanted to show you was how easy it was to apply Sapal 2-in-1 with a brush, roller, or palette knife because of its paintable consistency. This roof ridge overlap, sealing, and waterproofing fix was done in less than a minute. The third thing is how sometimes roof nails start to rust and or come loose. If left unchecked, this weakens the grip of the corrugated GI sheets on the rafters underneath that they're attached to. We also used Sapal 2-in-1 to seal and reinforce such nails. Otherwise, sections of our roof might get blown away by strong wind during typhoons. Okay, let me take a few seconds to admire how a white roof is kinda cool to look at. I was skeptical at first that painting our roof white might reduce our home's appeal, but to be honest, it does look unique since every other roof in the Philippines is painted red, green, brown, or blue. Anyway, at 3:06 p.m., they are almost done with the second coat on the left side of the roof. And before they move on to the right side, I wanted to grab this opportunity to share with you the fourth thing that personally I was most excited about. Will this white paint be literally cooler than our old green paint? Now, I'm standing on the right side of the roof, far away from any painted white surface. With an infrared thermometer, let me get the surface temperature here. Okay, that's an average of 50.8 degrees Celsius or 123.4 Fahrenheit. This is hot. We're literally halfway to the boiling point of water. By the way, did you know that at 50 degrees Celsius, it takes 5 minutes for hot water to cause third-degree burns? Now I wonder what the temperature is over here. Wow, 51.9 degrees Celsius. That's even 1.1 degrees Celsius hotter. Now, moment of truth. White paint. Will you look at that? 44 degrees Celsius. That's 7.9 degrees Celsius cooler than the other side. And that's despite the roof ridge being the hottest part of any roof. I can say that this acrylic white paint is starting to pay off. Okay, I want to try something else. Let's compare the right side of the roof with the left side and see if that's any different. Oh my, only 41 degrees Celsius on the white side. And going back to the green side, (51.1 degrees Celsius. That's even a wider gap of 10.1 degrees Celsius. Now I can't wait for the entire roof to be painted white. Meanwhile, inside our living room, the ambient temperature was 33 degrees Celsius or 91.4 degrees Fahrenheit. Since at this point only half of our roof had been painted white and the other half was still green, I calculated for their average temperature at 46 degrees Celsius. This means that our ambient indoor temperature was 13 degrees Celsius cooler than the roof. By the way, on this day, June 25th, 2023, the forecasted AccuWeather daytime temperature was also 32 degrees Celsius in the city we live in. On day 3, a lot of different things were done, and by 1:20 p.m., the entire left side of the roof has been coated twice, while the first coat on the right side of the roof has begun. This also included painting our toilet air vent pipes along with their new PVC covers. We actually have 2 air vent pipes. The other one is located somewhere over there. Here's a closer look. Meanwhile, the gutters on the right side of the roof have also been cleaned and painted over with Epoxy Primer. Since Epoxy Primer also serves as a watertight and airtight sealant, it keeps oxygen away and should prevent further rusting and prolong the life of the iron sheets. Remember that rust is iron oxide, or the combination of iron and oxygen. Also, the cracks and holes that we had spotted from our inspection in day 1 have been covered with Sapal 2-in-1, making the seams waterproof. By 4:12 p.m., the PVC pipe we purchased has been cut to length and dry fitted to this broken gutter system. Up inside the gutter itself, the PVC pipe is held in place with a circular drop outlet, cut and shaped accordingly from a piece of thin iron sheet. And towards the end of day 3, over 90% of our entire roof has been coated twice, and these buckets and cans of acrylic white paint are almost depleted. Day 4 was expected to be the last day of the project, but my main guy didn't report for work due to an injury he sustained the previous day. With only his assistant doing all the work, progress was painfully slow and definitely caused the project to be extended 1 more day. This remaining section might appear small in relation to the entire roof, but because of its location, extra caution was required here. Also, all the fasciae, or the boards that run along the edges of the roof, were painted white. Meanwhile, I did have them cut 3 squares of equal dimensions from this piece of GI flat sheet. The first square looks like this, and I left it as is. The second square, I coated with blue acrylic paint on one side. I'm just waiting for this first coat to dry so I can paint a second coat later. Now, the last piece I painted with 2 coats of acrylic white, the same paint that we had been using on our roof. And these are in preparation for a simple experiment that I will show you towards the end of this video. The last day is all about finishing touches, such as installing new flashings along this roofline to prevent rainwater from splashing through the gaps. These are fastened in place with rivet nails and later on waterproofed with Elastoseal and Epoxy Primer. Finally, they too will be painted with 2 coats of acrylic white. At 9:58 a.m., the sun was starting to beat down on us. So while they were up there on the roof finishing up, I thought it was the perfect time to set up my little experiment down here. We have 3 equally sized galvanized iron flat sheets, the same material commonly used for roofs, except that roofs are corrugated to give them that extra sturdiness. The first is painted blue. This middle one is the factory default and serves as our control, while the third one is painted white. And when we look at the backside, none of them are coated, which somewhat simulates how roofs are typically treated. For now, I'm gonna let them bake under the sun for several hours to really soak in that solar heat. Then later, we're gonna compare their temperatures and see what we get. At 10:46 a.m., my guys were done applying Elastoseal and Epoxy Primer on the key sections of this downspout and were about to fasten the PVC pipe to the wall with metal straps. And after 20 minutes, they began painting the pipe and straps orange, so everything blended well with the concrete post. I was glad that they were finally getting this done since, judging from the dark clouds over the horizon, I anticipated it would rain later in the day. Since this is the first time our roof has been 100% coated with acrylic white and the old green paint completely gone, I was curious what the temperature would be. 45.4 degrees Celsius or 113 degrees Fahrenheit. Is this cooler than our old green paint? Well, if I compare this from my initial reading of 51 degrees Celsius on June 25, this roof is 5.6 degrees Celsius cooler. But you might wonder, didn't white read just 41 degrees Celsius back then? So why is it reading 45.4 degrees Celsius today? Well, I don't have a conclusive answer for you, but it's worth noting two possible factors. First, today, June 28, I took the temperature at 11:56 a.m., which is practically high noon, while on June 25, I took the temperature at 3:06 p.m. And second, in the city we live in, the forecasted AccuWeather daytime temperature on this day is 33 degrees Celsius, while 3 days ago, June 25, it was just 32. Like I said, every degree counts, and even just 1 degree can have a huge cascading or stacking effect. But regardless of the handicap, one thing's for sure, white deflects heat so much better than green. Anyway, I can't wait to measure the temperature of those bad boys down there. It's 1:18 in the afternoon and the sun has moved westward in the past 3 hours. That's why I kept on repositioning and reorienting our setup so that the metal squares always face the sun directly. And now we're here, across the street. Okay, let's read their respective temperatures, starting with the unpainted one. Then the blue one, and finally the white one. And here's our average temperature tally. Do you notice something interesting? White is cooler than blue. We kinda expected that since we already saw that white was cooler than green on the actual roof. But what's surprising is that the unpainted galvanized iron sheet is the coolest among the three, and I'll try to explain why in a minute. As I anticipated, it did rain later in the day, and quite hard I would say. This newly installed downspout was doing its job very well. Because it's now funneling all that water in one direction, water splashes are minimized from reaching the interior area of our garage. And thanks to Sapal 2-in-1, there's no more water streaking down this concrete overhang. Meanwhile, here's an area of the roof where there's still some leaks. But since we now know where the drip is coming from, it's just a matter of waiting for the rain to stop and the roof to dry, so we can safely go up there and patch holes with Elastoseal. By the way, never repair a roof when it's wet. It's dangerous. What I suggest in the meantime is taking a video or photo of the leak so it's easy to remember exactly what section of the roof to fix later on. Okay, it's July 1, 2023 at 1:02 p.m. and today is the hottest forecasted temperature by far at 36 degrees Celsius. In contrast, the average daytime temperature in the past 7 days was just 32.4 degrees Celsius. So, I'm excited to do a series of temperature checks, starting with our ambient outdoor temperature. And what I have here is a desk thermometer that can measure both ambient temperature and humidity. This isn't broken, I promise. It's just that the sun today is glaringly hot. It's temporarily distorting the LCD screen. But as best as I can tell, it's reading an ambient temperature of 49.2 degrees Celsius and rising, and a humidity level of 27%. See how a citywide temperature forecast of 36 degrees Celsius translates to 49.2 in our actual area? In other words, it's hotter here by a whopping 13.2 degrees Celsius. So yeah, I'm feeling extra crispy standing out here. But I'm also extremely curious how all this sunlight and surrounding heat affects our metal sheets. And there you have it. The readings are relatively consistent. White is still cooler than blue, and the unpainted one remains the coolest of all. In fact, so much cooler than blue by 12.7 degrees Celsius. Why is that? You see, newly galvanized iron or steel has a bright, shiny coating of zinc. It is this protective layer that gives it a reflectivity of over 70%. However, this sheen is short-lived. If the sheet is exposed outdoor and its coating weathers, zinc patina will form, which decreases reflectivity. For example, after 3 days of outdoor exposure, the reflectivity will drop to 55%. In addition to the zinc patina, the accumulation of dust and dirt will significantly reduce reflectivity over a short period. So as a roof, not painting GI sheets isn't recommended because they will likely be dull in just a few months. By then, your roof will not only be hotter, but also become vulnerable to iron's natural enemy, rust. Okay, from down there to way up here, given that we have an ambient temperature of 49.2 degrees Celsius, let's see how our roof is holding up. An average of 52.2 degrees Celsius. While this may appear hotter, remember that today we have the hottest AccuWeather forecast and an ambient temperature of 49.2 degrees Celsius. So, this temperature on the roof is kinda expected, but I bet still much cooler than a green paint. Speaking of ambient temperature, I quickly went inside our house to check on our indoor ambient temperature, which was reading 35.1. This meant it was 14.1 degrees Celsius cooler inside than outside. And if our roof was at 52.2 degrees Celsius, I was curious what our ceiling temperature was. 38.2 degrees Celsius, so it's cooler by about 14 degrees too. Thank you for being patient with me and reaching this far into the video. So let me reward you with the answer to the biggest question you may still have at this point. Why white? The albedo effect is the ability of a surface to reflect sunlight. Light-colored surfaces have high albedo and reflect more sunlight, while dark-colored surfaces have low albedo and absorb more sunlight. Since white is the lightest of all the colors, it has the highest albedo effect and thus reflects sunlight and minimizes solar absorption the best. As such, white roofs are a low-cost, low-carbon, low-energy solution to cool down indoor temperature. This practice has been proven around the world for centuries. In countries with a warm climate, such as Southern Europe or North Africa, it is extremely common to see traditional buildings painted in white. And in the modern times, why acrylic and white is a powerful combination that allows our homes to adapt to the extreme weathers brought forth by climate change.